Okay, here we are. Welcome, everyone. We realize this time zone is challenging for much of the world, but thanks to those of you who are joining us today. Welcome back if this is not your first session, and welcome if it is your first EC3 2.0 conversation with us. Seeing the numbers continuing to tick up, but I'm going to go ahead and get started since our conversations have been deep on this subject matter and don't want us to cramp the end portion of our session today. So thank you all for the many ways you support building transparency and help us shape EC3. I'm Allison Kin-Bennett, about 5 months into my role as Executive Director at Building Transparency, and I'm joined again by Aziza Priota, our Data Manager, Vaslav Hasik, our Technical Director, and Michaela De Rousseau, a former B-tier and now supporting us as an independent consultant. Across all 4 sessions, we are listening carefully and intentionally, translating your feedback directly into the EC3 2.0 roadmap. And in session 2, we zoomed in on the EPD data ecosystem, sourcing, quality, and stewardship, and today we move from data trust to data decision-making workflows. So yes, slide 2 now. We've talked a lot about BT's mission and EC3's role as the trusted global data infrastructure for climate action. And we know that data matters most when it works inside real project workflows. Today is about the project planner and how practitioners move from product level data to project level decisions using EC3. Some of what we'll cover may sound deceptively simple, like an autosave feature and better copy and paste between projects, easier duplication of assemblies, cleaner bill of material imports, reducing clicks, and hopefully overall just less lag and friction. And some of what we're exploring is more ambitious, like AI-supported cost estimating tied to embodied carbon and improved assembly comparisons and expanding toward more whole life carbon coverage. The focus for EC3 2.0 is to meaningfully support decision-making without trying to become a full design platform. We want to enable strong workflows while still allowing commercial tools and partners to innovate on top. And again, for those that haven't heard, while this series is about EC3 2.0, we are excited about a partnership to bring Tally 2.0 to market this year. So stay tuned for more on that soon. Next slide, please. As always, thank you to this ecosystem of philanthropic supporters. And next slide, please. And our implementation and technology partners and collaborators. We are deeply grateful. The foundation you've helped build is what allows us to modernize thoughtfully. So, many of you here today are the people actually applying EC3 in real construction projects, navigating deadlines, client expectations, compliance requirements, and coordination across teams. Your workflow feedback is especially important because usability challenges, even small ones, can dramatically improve or disrupt daily practice. So today we want to understand where EC3 fits naturally in your project workflow, where it creates friction or slows you down, where EC3 can unlock the most value, and where automation could meaningfully reduce repetitive work. So as throughout these sessions, whether you're deeply technical or just trying to get through a project efficiently, your input matters to us. Please add your questions in the Q&A, speak up during discussion time at the end, and take a few minutes to complete the additional feedback form linked in the Q&A and on our homepage. With that, I will hand it over to Vaslav.
Thanks, Allison, and welcome everyone again. I do see some repeat audience here, so thank you for sticking with us through all of these sessions. And again, all of your feedback is super valuable. I do still have a couple of slides that we've covered before, but for anyone that's only been able to attend this session, I do want to make sure that we give everyone the full context. So we have been collecting feedback through multiple channels over the years. We have over 4,000 tickets in the report bugs and feedback section of EC3 that we've been putting together in sort of a synthesized version of all of your feedback over the years. We also obviously have some email-based channels, as well as the latest edition of the feedback form, which we would love for you to fill out. So there should be a link in the Q&A or chat. If not, let us know and we'll share that link with you. That is a great way of sharing some of the additional feedback, either on some of the things that we will cover today or additional things that we may be missing so far. In terms of our synthesis, here's an overview of the 15 different sort of topical areas that we are organizing all that feedback into. And then we're also working on full specification of some of that feedback, the full description, motivation behind it, and finally the prioritization of some of these changes to the platform. So all of this feedback that you are sharing with us is going to help us prioritize and address some of these most pressing issues right off the bat. Today, we'll be focusing on the plan and compare buildings section of the tool, but again, just a little recap. The tool does have two components. If you're interacting with plan and compare buildings section of the tool, you are inherently also working with the plan and compare material. So there's a little bit of an overlap here in these sessions. And even though today's session is focused on specifically some of the project planner features, if anyone has questions or ideas about the process of searching for EPDs, feel free to chime in on those aspects as well. You can also bring in some of the ideas that were discussed in the last session into this session. A little bit of a context setting walkthrough of the tool. I'll say the same thing that I've said before, but this is not a full walkthrough of EC3, more of a just walkthrough of the individual pages and general functionalities that the tool is already bringing to you, again, to facilitate better discussions during the feedback session. So the project planner, as you know, allows you to enter general project information, track various characteristics. It allows you to enter all of your material quantities in the material quantity table, address other life cycle stages like A4 and A5. There's also features for helping you calculate some of the material quantities in certain product categories where you as an architect or an engineer or a contractor may not necessarily have the dimensions or the quantities in the dimensions that the EPDs are in. So again, a little bit of a helping hand in bridging that gap. I already mentioned some of the other life cycle stages that you can track in the project planner, including our placeholder aspects for B and C stages, which are not fully built out in the tool, but we have made some significant strides in the past on outlining what those features would look like and how it would work. We also have the various analysis charts in the project planner. Most well-known one is probably the Sankey diagram that allows you to understand the contributions to the overall project impact. We also have some sharing and collaboration functionalities within the project planner so that you can work in a team. And so also some export functionalities, either for the entire project or for specific purposes like lead, or just a list of EPDs that are used on a project or other type of state requirements. And if you also hold multiple projects in the tool, you may know that you can also look at some of the contribution charts and some of the exports at a portfolio level, exporting multiple projects. So that's kind of the overview of what the focus really is today. We're looking at the improvements, additions, changes to any of those project level functionalities. A little bit of a recap from our first session, which was an overall look at the changes that are in our pipeline for EC3 2.0. The main ones that I'll focus on here are the user experience and interface aspects overall in the platform. So we do hear that some of the user interface is still too complicated, especially for newcomers into the tool. So a big component of this EC3 2.0 effort is simplifying the platform, cleaning up the user interface a little bit, making it less intriguing for any newcomers, but also still, retain or add functionality for any of the heavy users. With some of the newcomers into the tool, there was also some feedback on improving the onboarding and tutorials. So that's also on our list, and we're gonna have to change some of that just because of the changes on the overall user interface in the first place. That's all part of this effort. Accessibility compliance will also be built into our user experience, user interface effort off the bat. And then overall, just reducing any loading times, performance issues in the platform. We know that there have been some pain points on those aspects in the past. I'll switch over to the project plan and assembly section of this. So I'm kind of skipping over some of the EPD general updates that we've covered in the sessions last week and going straight to the project plan and assemblies sections. And we'll dive into these in depth, but some of the overarching improvements that we've heard about are some of the improvements to just how projects are organized in the project planner explorer part of the platform, and then making it easier to import and kind of edit bills of material quantities inside of the tool, including importing data from spreadsheets. We also have on our mind, expansion of the assembly builders and calculators that I mentioned earlier, and potentially creating an assembly library for those so that it's easier to add or build up your library and add some of those assemblies, already pre-built assemblies into your projects. Here's also a look on all of the items that we've covered in session number 2 on the EPD deep dive. Again, this session is not really about this, but if there are any questions or ideas on the searchability of EPDs, data quality of EPDs, feel free to ask about those as well, and we can bring this slide back. With that, I will dive into the deep dive of the project planner, improvements that are on our list. And I'm going to always pause in some of the sections where we're talking about certain group of these improvements and functionalities. If you have any input, feedback, initial reactions about that feedback, including positive and negative, please let us know. Raise your hand if you want to speak, or let us know in the Q&A or chat. With that, let's dive deep. So actually, before diving deep, the overarching flow of today's session on the project planner is going to just take place mainly in the project planner interface itself. That's where most of the changes that we hear about are needed. Then we have the project explorer, which is basically just a full list of projects where you're organizing your portfolios. Project analytics in regards to any sort of charts and analyses that you might find in the platform. And then again, the assembly components of the tool. So with that, let's dive deep on the project planner side of things. So one of the main aspects that I mentioned that we're planning to address is some of the table performance. I know that there have been some projects that may have been imported from, let's say, Revit or other building information modeling tools that may have hundreds or sometimes even thousands of elements. And we know that there are some performance issues when the number of elements gets that high. So that is on our list. We're already working on some profiling aspects on allowing us to address some of those performance issues, as well as planning and preparing for a larger migration of all of our data to a different database structure. On the project page, user interface and sort of user experience cleanup, we have worked on this page over the years and kind of started adding on functionality throughout the page. And so we know that the user interface can be a little bit discombobulated. And that is one of the things that we also plan to address. In addition, with some of the performance issues and the user interface, we know that sometimes people either forget to save the project and lose their data, or sometimes the page just crashes and you lose your data as well. So autosave functionality has been very highly requested feature on this page as well, and it's definitely on our radar. If there are any other related comments or questions about any of these first three improvements that are on our list, please let us know, and I'll pause here for a second. If there are any initial reactions or additional feedback on these topics. And if not, we'll just keep on going and stop in other places. I know this one is a little bit more of a background type of issue for EC3 than others are. The second set of improvements are changes to some of the project level information that you can store in the tool. The first one is actually implementing some of the echo schema fields that you may be able to track within the project planner. This is, if you're not familiar with the echo schema, this is the embodied carbon harmonization and optimization project that VT was part of together with CLF and a couple other organizations like USGBC, ILFI, on making sure that we call the same fields within these project data pages that people are filling out on various platforms. Make sure that we align on the nomenclature and the field naming of some of these fields. So in terms of EC3 2.0, we do plan to implement that echo schema so that it's easier when you're transferring project level information between platforms, that it's easier to transfer as much of the information as possible. In terms of custom project level fields, we do sometimes get questions about tracking your own milestones on a project, tracking your own project IDs that you may be storing internally within your organization. And we do sometimes in some of the private instances, anyone that has been working in the private instances, we do have these custom project level fields, but it's a broader requested feature for, I think, just generally any EC3 user that is an architect or an engineer that is working on a number of projects within the platform to be able to track more than just some of the core fields like name, construction start date, and address. I would like to hear if there are specific fields that anyone on the call would like to see on the project page that are not currently covered. And if you are already thinking about transferring some of the data between different platforms and you are excited about the echo schema implementation. So again, I'll pause here for a second, see if there are any comments or initial reactions.
And maybe this is a good time to use the chat just to throw some ideas in.
We got at least one, so audience is not completely asleep. That's good.
All right. Let's keep it going.
We'll keep on going.
Oh, Anthony raised his hand.
Go ahead,
Anthony, you want to come off mute? Let me see. Allow Mike. You should be able to unmute now.
Oh, hi. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm wondering for the building elements, do you have omni-class building element classification? Like omni-class table 21 for floor construction, roof construction, etc. Because I think that would be helpful. And if that's not something that's natively supported, then at least the user can, maybe you have some kind of custom fields that users can kind of create their own schema or something.
Yeah, good question. For the elements classification itself, we do not necessarily have omni-class explicitly. We have uniformat, but it's sort of a starting structure for people. And I think there's some overlap, right, in omni-class and uniformat. So
there's some overlap, but I think right now it's not very granular with the uniformat. And so especially if we're thinking about how we collect whole building LC results and how we kind of do benchmarking across different building elements, we need to kind of harmonize around how we classify building elements, ideally across tools. And I think omni-class is definitely a strong contender for that. So I think that's been one thing that I feel like has been missing in terms of the classification. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. The classification within the tool that you can do, there is some customization, so you can do custom classification. And also the existing structure is pretty free form, so you can still override like what this is called. So there's a benefit in that you can make this an omni-class structure, but there's also a downside to that, because it's so free form, you may not necessarily get the same structure for every project, which is what I think what you were alluding to as well. This actually wasn't part of the echo schema. This was kind of outside the scope. The echo schema initially just focused on the high level fields of projects, but I think next iterations of the echo schema could include some of the more standardization of the elements as well.
I think that's pretty important. And also, like, if you think about like SE 2050 or all these other groups, like how they're collecting their data, they're also thinking about how to classify things properly. And so I think we need some more robust kind of schema that everybody's kind of agreeing on, especially on building element classification. So anyways, just want to throw that in. Thanks.
And I see there's a question if it collects seismic zone and other wind load zone. Yes, those are in the project classification right now. So these have been developed in the past with SC 2050, and they go and they do cover the seismic design category, risk category, and other things as well. So those are some of the fields that we currently have. Sorry, 1 second.
Thanks for the questions and the comments. Just checking the Q&A. Nothing new there. And I think we're ready. Oh, we have a hand. Alex. Let me try it. I didn't realize I needed to do this time. You should now have permission to unmute. There you go.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Václav, for the update on what's happening with the tool. One piece of feedback I have from using it recently in this project planning mode is I would love to have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to imperial versus metric units. I specifically I'm looking at there's this embodied carbon project intensity field that sort of is a quality assurance check to see how complete my model is. Right now, the intensities are being reported in per square foot values, which are not very useful to me, just because most of the ECIs that I'm used to are reported in kilograms per meter squared. So not sure if that's already a feature that exists to be able to map a project to SI units selectively and imperial units selectively, but something I was looking for.
Yeah, there is. So you can change the units. I think you're alluding to this section, right? Which is right now for me, it's per square foot. This actually is fully just using whatever units you use up here in the floor area. So while it does not allow you to switch to meters squared explicitly if you use feet squared up here, if you just change the values up here to be meters squared, it will change all of the per unit calculation to be in metric. So there's a little bit of a workaround, but we'll think about that as well.
Thanks. No, it's really useful to know that this is a feature that exists. I guess just because it wasn't clear to me that I could put in different units up there, and I also realize it's a very picky request because we are constantly switching back and forth between like a bill of materials that's coming in imperial units and then wanting to get SI units for the GWP results. But
yeah, that's right.
So maybe something that's more obvious, like a big toggle that's like this field is imperial, this field is in SI.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next couple of items on the list. So, a couple of the requests that we've had, or not a couple, but a lot over the years, have been to import bill of material quantities from spreadsheets. So that is on our list. And then just regular integrations with other platforms as well, which we have had over the years, a couple integrations. And we plan to continue supporting. We are usually when we're working on some of the integrations, we're relying more on the work being done by the other parties, like so some of the other organizations whose tool they are actually that we're trying to integrate with, just because they have more expertise in actually using their platforms as well. So that's kind of our focus going forward. We do have relationships with some of the main platforms, but if there are some integrations that you are really keen on having that we don't have currently, let us know. That is more, fuel in the fire for us to be able to go to some of these other platforms and say that we have that interest in that functionality. I wonder if there are any initial reactions to some of the streamlining of how do you get data inside of the bill of material quantities. Not a super not a question that's probably needs a lot of input, but just interested to hear how many people are excited about being able to import from a spreadsheet or other places.
Hearts and thumbs up are good for this response.
Yeah.
Or thumbs down, but yeah. Okay.
All right. Yeah, there's actually a raised hand. Or was there a thumbs up?
It was up and
Thumbs
down.
up.
So, yep.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, on to the next one. Direct EPD upload or simple way of uploading supplier data in the project. I think we've heard some of this. So basically today, in order to get a EPD into the system, you kind of have to go into, or not to the system, but let's say adding an EPD to a line item in your project, you have to go into the category, select the category, find the EPD in the list of EPDs in that category, assuming that you know where that EPD is, which category it's in. And then maybe we don't have the specific PDF that you've actually received from your supplier for that line item, then you would have to go into a separate part of EC3, upload that PDF, wait for it to digitize, and then kind of go back into the project and add it in. So it's a lot of different steps that we know people have to track. And so one of the things on the list that we could improve is to make this a little bit more streamlined. If you do have a PDF from your supplier in your hand, to make it easier to directly link it to a line item within the project. I don't know if there are any other, again, excitement in the group or any additional feedback on just the workflow of how do you actually select data for individual line item. Is the current system working for everyone? Are people having issues? Do you usually struggle with finding products in the right categories? Does anyone want to chime in on any of those questions? Sarah?
Thanks. Just maybe a clarifying question. Would this allow, I work with our concrete manufacturers and they'll produce custom information for a particular project. Would this let me upload that then into
Yeah, so
EC3?
is it still an EPD?
Sometimes, and sometimes it's more like a spreadsheet comparison of all the mixes on a given project and then what global warming is being targeted for them.
So this still focuses on the EPD side of data types. I think in our EPD session last week, I think you were there as well. We did discuss some additional data types that we might be able to accept in EC3 in the future, but it's still, I don't think it would still include a fully free-form Excel-based kind of estimate of carbon footprint or other environmental impacts.
Okay. Thanks.
And boss, if you have some questions in the chat to these points, can you select by
Select by
manufacturer
manufacturer
directly?
name directly. If so, you do have to go and find or open up the category first. Then you can search for all the EPDs, and then yes, you can select by manufacturer name. I could maybe be able to bring it up again. So let's say I'm here and I'm trying to add something to building element 41. Let's say I know this is steel rebar. Go and search for all those EPDs. I get the full list. This is for global rebar EPDs. So ideally, you actually refine some of the search filters. Here in the EPD table, you can then search by manufacturer, or you can also search in the product EPD section. So here I could say, let's say, new core steel EPDs, and I can go and find all of those EPDs here. Some of this is already built in. If there are ways to make this more obvious, we can, but I think it would be worth hearing what some ideas would be from our users. Or also, if there are other platforms that you really like in terms of search functionalities or sorting functionalities, you can also tell us what those are, and we can use those as inspiration. And I think there's probably similar responses here. I sometimes need to get creative when finding an EPD in the system with different searching criteria. Yes. Yeah, that can sometimes happen. I'll say sometimes, especially when you don't know which category an EPD is in, there are a couple things you can do. So either you can start your search in the broader category. That usually includes all of the subcategories or EPDs from all of the subcategories, and you can find the EPD that you're looking for, and it'll tell you which category it's in. Or the other thing that you can do is you can go into the managed data section, go into product EPDs, and that searches through the entire database, regardless of which category those products are in. Those are some of the current workarounds, but we'll take that feedback and think about how we can improve the whole process so that you don't have to know about the workarounds.
And Rowan has his hand up.
Sorry.
Hey, I apologize. I've been multitasking a little bit in the background, so maybe this has come up already. But in case it hasn't, for finding EPDs, like Nucor was a great example where there's products, the same product produced at different facilities. Sometimes I've noticed it can be hard to find the right facility. You might have a general GWP value in there for, well, I'm just going to say rebar at any facility, but you want one from the specific mill location. I'm not sure if there's a way to link, like if there's an EPD that has the general GWP, the non-location specific GWP, if that can be linked to the more specific option so you can easily toggle back and forth, or just make that a little clearer.
Got it. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think there's no obvious way in this particular table that some of these EPDs link right now, but some of them actually do. So for example, they come from the same PDF document, and they might have the same program operator EPD number. We could show which EPD number these correspond to. I think another option that we could do here is, to your point, maybe on this page, we could say there's a list of related EPDs. Not quite sure how we would show, in some cases, this can be a long list. Not sure how we would do that, but we'll think about ways to make some of the linkages between EPDs more obvious. Good feedback.
Yeah, those sound like good ideas. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think you can keep going.
So I was talking with the mic muted. So yeah, let's go to the next set of improvement ideas that were shared with us. This is mostly about the manipulation of some of the elements or categories or EPDs within the table itself. So bulk assignments or edits of elements. There are some functionalities within the tool that allow you to do that today, but I think sometimes they're just not super obvious. I think the bulk assignments or edits of elements are mostly currently useful when you're importing projects from other platforms like Autodesk platforms, where you are already reusing the same collections across multiple building elements. When you're then editing a single element that may have the same set of collections across multiple elements, there is an option to apply those changes across all of those elements. But again, it's probably not as obvious. You can't actually do it, like for example, on the page that we're looking at right now. If I wanted to apply the same category across all of the red line items, I would still have to do it either one by one or using the copy paste button and copy paste it over one by one. So I think there are still some improvements that could be made by just selecting multiple elements and going through the category selection once instead of multiple times. With the copy and paste collections from project to project, so again, there's a way to copy paste within a project, but we have heard over and over that sometimes people just want to copy paste collections across projects. Sometimes you may have multiple windows open next to each other and you just want to drag them over. There are probably some implementation challenges, but also, it's not impossible. So it is on our list. We'll look into implementing that in EC3 2.0. There's also custom element level tags that people have been asking about. Maybe you may have a unique way of wanting to identify a list of interior elements versus exterior elements. It's probably not the best example because we have this unit format structure which already does that for you. But I'm just saying examples, right? You may be wanting to tag certain elements as being phase 1 or phase 2, etc. And if you're using something like Asana or other task management sort of table-based platforms, you oftentimes are able to add tags to individual line items that then help you filter and find things that are more specific to your tasks at hand at that given time. And that also comes with the bullet point that talks about improved filter options for the element table. Right now, there's a couple of ways that you can filter, but I think it only includes if you have elements with errors or without errors. I think there are additional functionalities, especially if there were a column for tags where you could do additional filtering for, let's say, just interiors, again, just exteriors, just reused elements and other things that could be useful. And then finally, in terms of just the overall user experience, user interface here, sometimes people have trouble finding things on multiple pages, right? When the element lists are splitting across multiple pages. And also you can only see, say, 6, 7, 10, 15 elements on each screen, really. So the size and styling of the table itself could be a little bit more flexible. I'm interested again to hear if these are any of the items that people have already had on their minds. They wished that this was more like some of the other tools that people are using on a daily basis. Or if there's something that's not actually on this list that we're missing in terms of just being able to smoothly use the project element table. Again, opening it up to the audience. Do you have any engagement in the Q&A or chat? Don't see anyone wanting to speak.
I think you've covered it for now.
All right. Let's move on then. So the next set of changes, one of the more specific requests we've heard over and over is to show the element name in the collection modal window. So this is when you click on the category button at the top, right? You're now defining the category, search filters, and the EPD of the line item. Sometimes the element name may actually include some of the specifications that you might need to select on the subsequent pages. And so the fact that you can't see it in the modal window is a little bit of a hindrance to the whole workflow. Sometimes people have to X out of this window, go and look at the element again, and then come back in to refine some of the search filters. So again, we hear you on that front. This is a relatively simple, straightforward update that's on our list. And the other option here is that we could actually make the modal window movable by itself so that you could actually move things around as well. If anyone has any feedback on that point, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I'll just keep on going. So for simplifying the reference lines and baseline settings, I wonder how many people actually know how to set the baseline settings in the project level and how to make it work for the lead charts. Currently, there's multiple places where you can select those reference lines and baseline settings. So I just want to make sure that everyone is able to actually use those effectively, and if not, let us know. And we'll think about clear ways of guiding people through the selection of some of these CLF or EC3 baselines, both on a project level as well as individual element level. So if there are people on the call and you are using CLF baselines, please give us a thumbs up. And if you are not able to find the baseline settings or have had trouble with it, give us a thumbs down. Let's do it that way. Okay, while we're collecting thumbs up, thumbs downs, let's move on to the next topic. So whole life carbon coverage has been on our list, actually, again, for some time. We have created some mock-ups and collected some data to be able to use or implement B and C stages in the past. That's still on our list. In terms of prioritization, please let us know if this is something that is high on your list and you are excited about, so that we can, put that higher on our EC3 2.0 list as well. In terms of the last two items on the left side of this list, automated material selection based on elements name and other AI-powered features, including specifically cost estimating. This has been one of the feedback requests that we've heard. One of the examples or requests basically is when I have a very well-defined material name or element name, including all of my specifications in the element name and category name in the element name, would there be an easier way of actually selecting the category and the specification filters for me? I have some ideas on how can that be done. It's probably easier now with AI tools that we have at our disposal, right? So again, if that's something that you would be interested in, let us know so that we can prioritize. On the AI-powered cost estimating, I think the idea is that we have the full list of elements that are typically collected for cost estimates as well. We have all of the quantities and units. The only thing that we don't have as EC3 is a library of cost rates for some of these elements. And we are not a cost estimating tool, so we don't really have plans for focusing on that type of endeavor. But again, with AI tools, it may be a little bit easier to at least do sort of initial high level cost estimating features based on the information that you have in this table. Again, if that's something that you're interested in, let us know. We can look a little bit further into potential solutions. And I see at least one person excited about high-level AI costing, so that's good. All right, let's keep on going. Project Explorer. So I mentioned before some of the current pain points that we know about from users. So performance improvements, loading of the project tables is very high on our list. And that's something that we will absolutely address with EC3 2.0. We do also have some current bulk selection and manipulation features of the projects, but we still have heard from multiple users that it's kind of hard to use sometimes. And so if you have some pain points with bulk editing or moving projects or comparing projects, let us know. And again, the more specificity you can provide in some of that feedback, especially if you're filling out that feedback form, the better, because then we have better idea of exactly what the pain points are, not just in generalities. And enabling projects to open in a new tab, again, kind of a trivial feedback, but one that we hear all the time is that currently, if you click on a project, you get taken to the project. And then if you want to open up other projects to open up side by side, you have to go and navigate back to the My Buildings page or other pages. And you basically have to re-list all of the projects again and again. So we also know about some of those pain points as well. If there are other aspects of improvements that you would like to see specifically in the Project Explorer, again, let us know. And I'll pause here again if there is any immediate feedback. Taylor?
Hey, Vaslav, loving this. I don't know if this falls in this category, but for Build Cold, we've been looking at how to export projects out of EC3. Will you be covering any sort of updates to that API in terms of the project planner export ability?
Yes, there are some plans for that, and we will have another session specifically about integrations, kind of APIs and schemas later this week. There is the current API documentation that we have. There are ways of extracting this element level information and project level information. So if you have questions about that, we can chat more. Otherwise, if you're already working with that API and have feedback on its improvements, let us know. Otherwise, I think Thursday's session is really focused on those things.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely follow up directly.
Great. So appreciate the feedback.
Steph has a question around whole life carbon in the chat.
Yes, updating the tool defaults regarding A4 and A5 to align with developing standards. Yes. Are there specific standards that are being alluded to? Like is it I'm blanking, 240p? 240p, okay.
Yeah, Vasav,
Yeah,
I guess it's a two-parter. I've been just hearing from folks who've been using the project planner, which I don't have as much experience with, and just been reviewing their output reports. And sometimes I think it's a little bit confusing to folks making sense of how the A4 values are applied, and some of the, that the different trucks and the lack of harmonization across the different LCA tools, which is not a EC3 problem, but something people are trying to make sense of, the different emissions factors. And then the A5 question was really just about, I've heard some confusion from EC3 users around what is being reported in the A5 and whether it's just default assumptions around waste, or if there's, an ability for folks to fill out the different submodules or have building level impacts. So sorry, there's two separate things in there.
Yeah, so one on the default factors, I think yes, absolutely, we want to align with standards. On the other hand, I think the 240 publication is relatively newer, so I think we just need to kind of catch up on what was decided there. And then the other part of this is that when we were initially developing this functionality, we wanted to make sure that the factors we were using had all of the environmental impact data other than just carbon footprint, just in case we eventually needed to go to cover additional impact categories. And I don't think that 240p, for example, is really covering that level of scope. Again, not a super important problem maybe, but it is playing, or we need to consider that when we're listing the individual mode types, and if we're giving multiple options for different sources of those mode types, how do we communicate that? So we'll think about those specific issues. But yeah, we absolutely want to be up to date on latest standards. On the A4 side of things, we actually don't really have any defaults in terms of quantities. This is a fully user-based table, or user is expected to fill out all of the quantities. We just provide some of the sources of, say, electricity factors, natural gas, and some of the other fuel types that people can enter, but otherwise we don't actually provide, sort of a template or starting point of quantities. And when it comes to 240p, I believe the A5 is also just covered on a general, like, kilograms of CO2 equivalent per meter squared basis there, right? And so EC3 users could just enter the, let's say, 25 kilograms of CO2 equivalent into A5 here and ignore all the other inputs, or you can remove them. So that's also possible. Maybe it's more of just how do we actually educate people, and this is how the functionality works, right? Thinking about user guides, onboarding resources, etc.
Thanks, Vasav. Yeah, super helpful.
Great. We have about 6 minutes left, and I see a hand, but he took his hand down. Thanks, Anthony. Oh, it's back.
Okay, I'll go through these relatively quickly again to open it up to any parting feedback or thoughts. And I think these can kind of be lumped together, but again, we have heard from a number of users that some of the charts are too complicated, and sometimes even the complicated charts don't have all of the information that other people want. So I think, just thinking more closely about those two very different user bases is going to be top of our mind with some of the updates to the results charts. And one of the largest changes that is coming is going to be changes to using the reported GWP instead of the uncertainty adjusted GWP throughout the tool. We know that a lot of people do their own post-processing of the Excel spreadsheets right now, when they are actually trying to use the reported GWP values instead of the EC3 uncertainty values. With that, there is going to be much more importance, or much more basically responsibility on the end users to understand the different data quality aspects of the EPDs that they may be choosing and comparing. And so there's some responsibility on us to providing some of that additional context now that the EC3 uncertainty will go away. But I just wanted to stress this on this call as well, because it will affect a lot of people's workflows and results in the projects. So just a little bit of a heads up. And then I did mention the assemblies, and some of you may be using them already, but we have the assembly builder functionality within the tool. It took us quite a long time to add just the few of the assemblies that we have in the tool, but we also have much larger set of lookup tables and other resources from some of our sister tools to be able to expand that list and hopefully streamline the maintenance and development of some of these builders, so that again you can spend your time less on filling out the material quantity table and more on actually finding the right suppliers, etc. And again, there's going to be a little bit of more integration and API aspects to the assembly builders as well. We do have a number of our partners asking for, well, how do we can we get access to some of these calculators in our platforms? Is that on your list? How can we reuse some of the work that we've already done on creating these builders and lookup tables in our third-party platforms as well? So that is on our mind as well. With that, we only have a couple last minutes left. So I do want to open it up to any remaining ideas or feedback, pain points, excitement that people may have on any of these topics. And then again, encourage you to fill out that feedback form and let us know if you have interest in potentially beta testing some of the features as well. I'll hand it back over to Allison while we also wait for any last comments or
Melissa has a question that I published that I don't know the answer to, Vaslav, around have baselines been updated for LEED v5 now, including concrete and asphalt?
I don't think for LEED v5. Actually, does LEED v5 provide the specific numbers for the category baselines, or is it just referencing CLF? Does anyone know? I haven't looked at the LEED v5 guidance in a while.
I think CLF is an option to reference, and then you can potentially, if you have something better that you know of, you can use that too.
Got it. So we are adding this 2025 CLF baselines as we speak. So those will be available. Other baselines, trying to think. I think there's some functionality that we have where you can add custom targets, but I don't think it actually covers like reference lines. Let me see. I feel like it was on our list some time ago, but I don't think it was actually implemented. So if you go into the individual elements category search and you click on the settings under the chart, you can toggle between the different baselines. Now, in some cases, like in this case, because the category is too broad, you actually don't even get the 2023 baseline, even though it's there. I would have to go and I believe select, let's see, fabricated, because there's a fabricated CLF baseline in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then there is a custom reference line. So actually, looks like we did implement it. Let's say 0.6. And so, yeah, you can actually add custom baselines. Now I'm also pausing once again because I'm using my pilot account. I'm not quite sure that we actually released this to the public yet, but that could be possible pretty soon. Any other questions? I think we're right at the top of the hour.
Sorry, maybe I'll just. I figure you're probably reading that long bit. Yeah. I just and we can take this offline afterwards, but I think it's worth looking at the GWP numbers for the truck right now, which is defaulted for most of the materials. It's extremely high, so we need to double check that number compared to the other tools. And then what Steph was mentioning is that like sometimes A5 is now getting referred to as like A5.1, A5.2, and A5.3. So what you're currently showing is A5.2, which is like the site energy use. So there you can basically after construction, you can tally how much like fuel you're using and et cetera. And that's site energy use. But then there's also material waste. So like on the construction site, if there's offcuts of any given material, some of the tools have default waste rates per material category that they apply. So that would be A5.3. And then you can also have A5.1, which is pre-construction demolition, which is if you're operating on a brownfield site, there's an existing building, it's getting demolished, and then before you're doing your new construction, there's an impact to that pre-construction demolition. So they're assigning it on the A5.1. And in ASHRAE 240p, which is only in a draft version right now, so it's not like there's a finalized version publicly available, but like they have some placeholder value for that. So like if you wanted to, you could integrate that as well. So just to clear up some, what those points meant.
Got it. Yeah, well, we'll consider that. Yeah, I think there's difference. So one, we can make this interface actually include some of the 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 sections. Right now, I can just add individual line items. I mean, I could say A5.1 trucks. Then I could say, there's some diesel usage of those trucks moving things around. I could do the same for other line items, let's say for 5.2, like you mentioned. It's kind of a workaround. Again, we'll consider this when we're thinking about the user.
Yeah, the A5.3 would be harder because that's if you were to do it in the method of like kind of having some default waste rates per material category, because some tools and some standards might like publish a table and say like concrete should have like 4-5% waste rate, and then like wood should be this X% waste rate, and they kind of apply that per material category. But anyways, just something to consider. Not asking you to commit to anything right now, but yeah.
Yeah, no, great point. So we do have waste rates in some of the calculators currently, and that's happening in the A1 to A3 modules. And so basically, you will have an additional amount of material that needs to be added to the site. But for the 240p topic, again, it's been a while since I looked through the proposals that were coming ahead or coming forward. Do you remember if their plan was to include just the disposal aspects, or was it also including the additional material sourcing carbon footprint? So like, let's say I need 110% of steel to cover the 100% of steel that I'm actually going to retain in the building. Is the 10%?
I can ask Steph to just jump in on that because she's probably better positioned to answer that.
You know what I'm asking, right? Is the 10%
totally.
production of the steel also in the 5.3, or is it just the disposal of that 10% of steel?
I can share the language with you offline. I was like kind of furiously trying to type it out, Vasav, but I think there's where you calculate it and then where it's reported. And so I think there might just be some like little tweaks about the reporting side and the output reports in here, just so users know what's being calculated and then like which module it's being put in. Because I'm not sure if folks understand like if the quantity is the quantity used in construction inclusive of waste or exclusive, and like you could obviously do the math either way. But that I think right now folks just aren't sure.
Okay. Yeah, and then John, it's right. There's like the waste and the fabrication process, which happens before stuff gets to the site, to the project site, and then there's like additional waste that happens on the project site. I believe the A5.3 is related to the waste that happens on the project site. But I know we've
Right.
also had long discussions about these differences in our steel PCR committees. So I'll leave it there.
Well, thanks for hanging on a little bit over time. Really, really helpful discussion. And Vaslav, I think it's been really valuable for you to do this live demo for this session in particular. So thanks for navigating between all your screens. Please don't hesitate to follow up with us directly and through the form that we've posted a couple times in the chat now. And our timeline you can see here. We're really excited to deliver the priorities to you by the end of the year, and you'll see some improvement sooner than that. So do reach out also if you're interested in joining like a beta testing / advisory group as we move towards development and release of EC3 2.0. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.